Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving deep into early Islam. We're going to be exploring the life of Saeed Ibn Zayd.
One of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Right. And our guide for this deep dive is this fascinating lecture by Dr. Omar Solomon. What really struck me about Saeed's story is that, even though his life was so intertwined with major events and influential figures in early Islam, he almost seemed to prefer a path of quiet devotion.
A hidden gem, almost.
Yeah, exactly. So let's uncover the story of this remarkable man together and see what we can learn from his journey.
And it's a journey that actually begins even before Saeed was born. We have to start with his father, Zayd ibn Amr. He was a seeker of truth, rejecting the idol worship that was so prevalent in Mecca at the time.
Oh, wow. So even before Islam.
Even before Islam. What's truly inspiring is that even before the Quran explicitly condemned the practice of burying baby girls alive, Zayd was rescuing these innocent children. He saw the inherent value of every human life. I mean, this reflects, a deep sense of justice and compassion, and that clearly must have influenced his son.
It really sets the stage for Saeed's life, doesn't it? It's like Zayd's yearning for a more just world paved the way for his son to find his own path to truth, And it wasn't just his actions, was it? There was that prayer that he made. He asked that if he himself was denied the companionship of the Prophet, his son Saeed would be granted that honor.
And that prayer, uttered with such sincerity, you can almost feel that it echoed through time. It's like Zayd's longing for guidance found its answer in his son's destiny. And Saeed embraced Islam early on. He was guided by Abu Bakr,
one of the Prophet's closest companions.
Exactly. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. He married Fatima bint AlKhattab,
the daughter of Umar ibn al-Khattab. Now, Umar was, initially a fierce opponent of Islam. In fact, he even persecuted those who followed it, including Saeed's own father. It's quite a family connection, isn't it? Especially in those early kind of tense days of Islam. I can just imagine what those first family gatherings must have been like.
Yeah, definitely not just awkward dinner conversations. Both Saeed and his father experienced Umar's anger firsthand before his conversion.
Wow. Imagine the courage it took for Saeed to marry into the family of a man who had literally persecuted his own father for his beliefs.
It's a testament to both Saeed's faith and the transformative power of Islam. You have former enemies becoming family.
Bound by a shared belief.
Exactly. And this spirit of forgiveness and reconciliation was key to the growth of the early Muslim community. And this is what makes Saeed's story so compelling. His life becomes like a microcosm of the broader changes happening in society. Now, he's described as this tall, imposing figure, but also incredibly humble.
Yeah, I read that too.
He devoted himself to worship and fought bravely in battles, yet he always sought to remain unnoticed.
He even preferred to be an unknown soldier, covered in dirt, despite being one of the 10 companions promised paradise by the Prophet. Can you imagine that? To have such an honor bestowed upon you and still choose to stay hidden, away from all the attention?
It really makes you wonder what motivated him.
It speaks volumes about his character.
Yeah, a man of action, not accolades. And his humility shines through even in his role as one of the scribes of the Quran.
Wait, he was a scribe of the Quran?
Yes, he was.
That's amazing. To have a hand in preserving the very words of God, and yet still choose to live so humbly.
It challenges our modern-day notions of success, doesn't it? Saeed's life wasn't about titles or recognition. It was about quietly serving a cause he believed in.
And this commitment to a life lived away from the spotlight. It becomes even more apparent when you look at the story of Umar's conversion. That actually took place, that dramatic event took place in Saeed and Fatima's home.
Imagine this. Saeed and Fatima are at home with Khabbab ibn al-Arat, who's secretly teaching them verses from the Quran. Suddenly, Umar bursts in, furious to discover his sister and brother-in-law embracing Islam.
Wow. So Saeed's home became the unlikely stage for one of the most pivotal moments in Islamic history.
What a turning point.
Right.
And it wasn't just about being in the right place at the right time. Remember, Umar had persecuted Saeed and his father before his conversion. This moment wasn't just about the spread of Islam, but also about personal forgiveness, reconciliation.
It's such a powerful message. Even in the face of personal hardship, they chose faith and forgiveness. And their choice had a ripple effect that changed the course of history. It makes you think about our own actions, no matter how small they might seem.
It really does.
But, Saeed's story isn't just about these grand historical moments. It's also about the everyday choices that he made that reveal so much about his character.
Yeah.
What happened next in his life, I think, is particularly revealing.
You see, Saeed was known to be mujab. His prayers were often answered. And there's this incident where a neighbor falsely accuses him of stealing land.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember reading about this. Wasn't there like a pretty intense prayer involved?
There was. He was deeply offended by the accusation, as you can imagine. He invoked a hadith, a saying of the Prophet, about the severity of stealing land. He couldn't believe that he, someone who heard the Prophet condemn it so strongly, would ever do such a thing.
It must have felt like such a personal attack, given his reputation for piety.
Exactly. And in his anguish, he made a powerful dua
A supplication.
against the woman. He asked Allah, if she was lying, to take away her eyesight and make her home her grave.
And that's precisely what happened, right?
Yep.
She lost her sight and fell to her death in a well on that very property.
It's a story that sparks a lot of discussion. On the one hand, it highlights the power of a sincere dua, especially when someone is wrongly accused. It showcases the strength of his faith and his belief that Allah would deliver justice.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I can see why it might be unsettling for some. It raises questions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About the line between seeking justice and calling for punishment.
It certainly does. It prompts us to reflect on the nature of forgiveness, mercy, and the complexities of divine intervention. It's not a simple story with easy answers, but it reveals a side of Saeed that goes beyond his usual humility and restraint.
I think it makes him feel more human, more relatable, even though he lived in a time and context so different from our own.
Exactly. It reminds us that even the most devout individuals grapple with difficult situations and emotions. It adds another layer to our understanding of him.
Speaking of adding layers, we haven't talked much about his relationship with leadership roles. It's interesting that even when offered prestigious positions, like the governorship of Damascus by Umar, he repeatedly declined.
It speaks volumes about his priorities. He simply wasn't interested in power or palaces. His focus remained on living a life pleasing to Allah and staying true to his values.
You know, in today's world where ambition and the pursuit of status are so often lauded, his stance feels almost radical. Imagine turning down a promotion or a high-paying job because it didn't align with your spiritual goals.
It's a powerful reminder that true contentment doesn't necessarily come from external achievements. His life asks us to consider, what are we truly seeking? Are we chasing worldly success, or are we striving for something deeper, something more meaningful?
It's definitely a question worth pondering. And his life provides a compelling answer. He lived a long life dedicated to worship and service, ultimately passing away peacefully after Fajr prayer, uttering the Shahada, the declaration of faith in Islam.
What a beautiful way to depart from this world.
Even in his death, there's this sense of peace and fulfillment. His body was washed and prepared for burial by two other prominent companions of the Prophet Saad ibn Abi Waqqas and Abdullah ibn Umar.
And there's that detail about a fragrant scent emanating from his body even before any perfumes were applied.
Yeah.
Some believe it was a sign of his piety, a testament to the purity of his heart.
It adds a touch of the mystical to his already remarkable story. And it's worth noting that he outlived most of the 10 promised paradise.
It's as though he was granted extra time to continue his acts of devotion and solidify his legacy of humility and service.
So here we have Saeed Ibn Zayd, the quiet warrior, the humble devotee, the man who sought obscurity even as his life intertwined with pivotal moments in history. What does his story, seemingly hidden in the shadows of grand narratives, reveal to us today?
It reveals, I think, a path less traveled. A path that really challenges our assumptions about what a meaningful life is, you know? We live in a world that equates success with visibility, with being in the spotlight. And yet Saeed thought to remain hidden, to focus on his connection with Allah rather than, worldly recognition.
It's not like he was just a passive bystander, though. I mean, his life intersected with these pivotal events, from his father's search for truth to the dramatic conversion of Umar. He was at the heart of these historical shifts, but he never tried to center himself in the story.
Yeah. It's almost as if he understood that true impact doesn't always come from being the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes it's about those quiet, consistent actions that ripple outward and touch lives in ways that we may never fully comprehend.
It's such a powerful lesson, especially in our age of, social media and self-promotion. Said's story encourages us to ask ourselves, what really motivates our actions? Are we just seeking validation from others? Or are we striving to live a life that's actually aligned with our values, even if it means staying out of the spotlight?
Yeah. It reminds us that, our legacy isn't built on likes and followers. It's built on the impact we have on others and the state of our hearts. the sincerity of our intentions and that quiet dedication that we bring to the things that matter most.
And his story also highlights the importance of forgiveness and reconciliation. I mean, think about it. He married into the family of a man who persecuted his own father. He chose to build bridges instead of dwelling on past grievances.
Such a powerful testament to the transformative power of faith. It really underscores that idea that even in the face of adversity, we can choose compassion, we can choose understanding. It's a lesson that feels especially relevant in our, increasingly polarized world.
Absolutely. Saeed's life, it was rooted in a specific time and context. But it speaks to these, universal truths that transcend cultural and historical boundaries.
Yeah.
It's a story about the power of humility, the importance of quiet devotion, and the enduring impact of a life lived in service to something greater than oneself.
And while we may not all be called to the same path as Saeed, his story invites us to reflect on our own values, our own priorities. It asks us to consider, what kind of legacy are we building, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us?
So, as we conclude this deep dive, we leave you with this question. What will your quiet legacy be? How will you choose to make a difference in the world, even if it means embracing a path less traveled? A path of quiet devotion and humble service. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the life of Saeed Ibn Zayd. May his story inspire us all to seek a life of meaning and purpose, one that resonates with our deepest values and leaves a positive mark on the world.
It really does make you think, doesn't it? About how we measure success.
Yeah?
What we value. Saeed's legacy wasn't about outward appearances.
No.
It was about inner transformation, about living a life of purpose grounded in his faith. It's a powerful reminder for all of us.
It is. And, this makes me think about something you said earlier about Saeed's father. Saeed, remember how he was so concerned about justice, even before Islam came along?
Yeah.
Rescuing those baby girls? It's like Saeed inherited that same sense of compassion, that commitment to doing what's right, even when it's difficult.
Absolutely. It's like a thread running through their lives, this deep sense of empathy and a willingness to stand up for what's right.
And it didn't stop there. I mean, think about how Saeed reacted when that woman falsely accused him. He could have just brushed it off. But it was so important for him to clear his name, to uphold his integrity.
Yeah, I think that speaks to his character. He wasn't willing to compromise his values, even when faced with a personal attack.
And, it's easy to get caught up in the big moments of his life, the conversion of Umar, the battles he fought. But it's these smaller, quieter moments, I think, that really reveal his true nature.
Yeah, it's often in those quiet moments that we see someone's true character. And Saeed, even in the face of adversity, consistently chose a path of integrity, humility, and devotion.
It's inspiring, really.
It is.
It makes you wonder, what kind of mark we're leaving on the world. Are we living in a way that's true to our values? Are we making choices that reflect our deepest beliefs?
It's a question we should all ask ourselves.
And I think Saeed Ibn Zayd's life offers a pretty compelling answer. So thank you, everyone, for joining us on this deep dive. I hope you found it as thought-provoking as we did.
I did. It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep seeking those hidden gems. The stories that challenge us, inspire us, and remind us what it truly means to live a life of purpose.